I was waiting for that little message to go across the screen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for everyone to come into the room. As everyone comes in, good morning. My name is Lauren Simpson. I am with the LA Network, SBDC, or Small Business Development Center. I am joined today by financial guru. I have a few gurus on today. Let me just start there. I have first Miss Lori Williams, who is our host for Small Business Talks. And then I have social media guru, Miss Deborah Deras. And so as everyone continues to file in, I will give a quick overview as to who we are and what we're doing today. Good morning, ladies.
Annie's like, goddess, not guru. I'm not a guru. I don't like the word guru. I prefer the word goddess. They call me SMG for short, social media goddess.
So as the new people come in, I am joined by SMG, the social media goddess.
There you go.
Ms. Deborahs.
Yeah. See, social media has the fun. I don't think I can be called the financial goddess because I think I might change numbers or something. So I don't get to have as much fun with everything.
Oh.
I put the fun in funds, Lori.
There you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I always
good morning, everyone.
As everyone don't have funds.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Simpson. Again, I am with the LA Network, SBDC, or Small Business Development Center. I am joined today by Lori Williams, as well as my colleague, Deborah Deras. Really quickly, I wanted to give everyone an overview as to who we are. We are the SBDC. We are the Small Business Development Center. We have centers throughout the United States, over 1,000 locations. And what we do is we offer low-cost business advising as well as trainings for all small businesses. For the Los Angeles area, Los Angeles, Ventura, and Santa Barbara areas, we are located here, as you can see on your screen. So we go as far out as Santa Clarita, and Camarillo, as well as Pasadena, down to Long Beach. And then again, what we do, we offer no-cost business advising as well as virtual trainings. We are your federal tax dollars at work. So all of our resources are free to you because your tax dollars have already taken care of it. So anything you need, please reach out to us. You can contact us today to get started. For the LA area, the phone number is 866-588-7232, or there's a URL that you can connect with us on via computer, of course, or your phone, smallbizla.org/new client. And then for those outside of Los Angeles, you can connect with us via the national network, so americassbdc.org. With that, I am going to stop my screen share. Everyone, you are joining us today for Small Biz Talk, and it's our talk show with Miss Lori Williams.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Thank you for signing in to today's show. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick, so let me get a second from that. So welcome once again to the SBDC Small Biz Talk. I think this is our fourth one now, if I'm not mistaken, Lauren. I think it's our fourth one. Is that correct?
It is. It's number 4.
It's exciting. We're on a roll. We are getting a lot of people every week. I want to thank so much those people who are staying with us consistently, and all those new people signed in today. Welcome, welcome. So Small Biz Talk, it's a weekly talk series, and during it, we're going to have a whole bunch of different things that happen. Sometimes I just present information and expertise and instruction. Other times we have guest speakers. We try to make it on real life situations, and anything that has to do with small business is on our topics of discussion. We added a new part last week called Ask Lori. I know that all the time people want to ask different questions about the EIDL loan, the PPP, finance, anything on your mind. We have a section, Ask Lori. I'm always watching in the question and answer for any questions. Additionally, Lauren is going to put in the chat. Anything that we do link guides is going to be in the chat. Any kind of questions you have, put them in the question and answer section. And Lauren is going to put a link in the chat. If you have a question that you want to have asked on the show, please go ahead and follow that link. It allows you to fill out the question, have it asked in advance. And I do monitor anybody who sends questions to make sure if I don't answer it on the show, you at least get an email back about the question. And we're going to have another section that we're going to talk about, especially next week, called Lessons Learned. Anybody who had followed me previously when I did the weekly webinars on the PPP and the EIDL, I started doing this part where it was lessons learned, and it's things that clients come to during the week that I see more than once that are better watch out for this, or you need to know about it. So every time before I end the show, I'm going to go over one little tidbit of something that I see happening within clients that everybody needs to know. So with no further ado, and this is a little bit about me. I always forget to talk about myself, who I am, been in business pretty much all my life. I always like to tell the story. I started my first company at 25. My mother said I had more guts than brains. I think that was totally true. I'd like to believe over the time my brains had caught up with the guts, but nevertheless, I'm not sure. But I've got a long time history of being a business consultant, and I've been with the SBDC as an advisor for over 10 years. So with no further ado, today we're going to talk about demystifying social media with guest host Deborah Deras. So Deborah, first of all, I want to say thank you, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I love to see that Emma's here and Miriam's here and Annie. And guess what they called you, Lori? They said you're their FFG, their financial fairy goddess. So
I said that. Thank you so much. So Deborah, for people who don't know you, though we know that everybody that knows you just loves you to death. For people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about how you help people with social media. Give us the background information.
Yeah, so I actually have been a client of the SBDC since 1999.
Wow.
When I had this vision, I know it sounds like ancient history, last century when I joined the SBDC, and I was working a government job. And I had gone to school for 8 years to study this government job. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a vocational counselor. And my undergrad was in marketing, but my graduate school was in helping people with disabilities because my brother had passed away of an epileptic seizure. And I thought, okay, this is a sign that I need to help people with disabilities. And when I got to the state of California, I realized it wasn't the people with disabilities that needed the help. It was the state of California. They didn't know how to market. So they told me to do marketing. And next thing you know, I'm like on Univision, I'm on Telemundo, I'm getting like nationwide coverage. And I got in big trouble because apparently everything needs to go through a public information officer. But then they're like, oh, so you're good at marketing. Why don't you do this? So I basically got a job as a counselor to help people with disabilities and ended up doing marketing. And after 7 years of taking that department to the next level, both myself and my boss were like, wait a minute, we can do our own thing. Let's start our own business. And I went to the SBDC, and Star Van Buren was my counselor, and she helped me with getting a business plan. And in 2002, so it took me a while to have the guts to take the leap to jump off the entrepreneur track, because my dad said, I sacrificed. I came here from Bogota, Colombia, so you could have a better life, and you're going to get rid of your health insurance. It was like, you have benefits. How can you go the entrepreneurial route? But I honestly, I don't know, for everyone listening here, when you started your entrepreneurial journey, I felt like I was going to die if I was going to be inside of a cubicle for 40 years, because there were 3 ways people left the Department of Rehabilitation. Three Ds. You either go on disability because you're injured, you die, or after 40 years of service, like you decide to retire, right? And I was like, So I retired at 28, thanks to the SBDC. And I've been in business for 21 years. So
that is,
yeah.
going back to when I was 25 and started my own company, I had been working for other companies in different roles over the time period. And it just so happened that each of these companies had an issue. I'm just in customer service and stuff. I'm very young. And then all of a sudden, like this one company goes out of business, this other company has this problem. Companies do that. They were smaller type companies. And so after the last one, I said, I am so tired of my existence being unknown to me and then suddenly be surprised. I was like, if I'm going to go under, I'm going to be the first one to know. And that's how I ended up. So everybody always says, well, was it inspiration for you? And I said, no, for me, it was desperation. I was just tired of it. So it's funny how we all start going down that entrepreneurship pathway. But what's also interesting, Deborah, is my first company, which I usually don't talk about. You're going to be surprised. You won't even know this. You're not going to believe what it was in. It was a marketing company. Do you started out in marketing, and I was the warm fuzzy sales marketing, and then I switched over in careers, decades ago, to be the financial guru. But when I started in marketing, marketing was like this, Deborah. You went to a printer and you got a flyer printed up, and you put stamps on it, and you put it in the mail. Okay, I'm showing the age here, right? So now we fast forward. So this comes to the question for some people like me, who marketing used to be mailing flyers. When you talk about social media, we say it all the time. When we say social media, from your perspective, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Certain platforms? If we were saying just demystifying social media, let's first define what is social media.
Yeah, and by the way, I can relate to you because starting my business as a public speaker, I used to have to mail VHS videotapes of me speaking, which is very pricey. I think it was like $12 per package. And when I discovered that I could just have a video on YouTube and get the same client to see me speak and hire me, that was wonderful. So demystifying social media. And by the way, a lot of people, when they refer to social media, they talk about digital marketing. And digital marketing is basically your footprint of your brand online. And digital marketing is not only social media platforms, it includes email marketing, it includes text marketing, it includes the whole landscape of you putting your imprint. And I think for a lot of people, when they think about social media, it's so confusing, it's so overwhelming. Just a really simple way to demystify this, because before my part-time job, when I was working, my day job was a professor. So I love teaching. That's one of my favorite things to do. So when you think of social media, if I can teach you how to think of it as networking online. So social media is not direct selling, right? That's advertisement. Okay. That's a different department than marketing. That's advertisement. Social media is you're getting people to know your brand, to understand your brand and how it solves the pain or problem that your ideal target market has. So I said some key words, right? So number one, you're not selling, you're networking. Then you're educating people. What is your brand? How do you solve their pain and problem? But not just everyone. It's your ideal target market. And that's when I teach social media, the first thing that we talk about is the social media platforms, because you do not need to be on every single platform because your target market isn't spending their time on every single platform. You only need to be on the platforms. And when I say platforms, I mean Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And I'm not saying you have to be on them. You only need to be on the ones that your target market spend their time on, which is
Deborah, I like
really important to know your target market.
I like the way that you said it's networking, because a lot of times people get confused because they think, okay, I'm doing this on social media. How is this relating to my sales? And they want that direct connection, right? And now with that, it also brings up another question that people have. Sometimes they say, should I be on any social media? Is it for me, especially if I've got more of a geographical type business, like a restaurant only in this specific area versus reaching out to the entire internet? And I'm going to put another question on there that I hear a lot, Deborah. What if I have like a services business? What if, like me, I'm, finance, or I'm doing taxes? Do I really want a social media, or is that not appropriate? So what do you say to those kind of comments when people are even saying, should I be in this platform at all?
Yeah. And the reason I say that it's networking is because many people use social media the wrong way, where they're throwing things to sell on there. So, or other businesses will say, well, I really get business through word of mouth. I'm like, well, how wonderful would it be to have digital word of mouth where YouTube, Facebook, Instagram is telling people about your business while you're seeing your clients? So I honestly believe that every um, business, even local businesses, especially restaurants, how bad were restaurants affected during the pandemic,
Right.
right? Because what social media does is it geo targets based on an area. Your phone is a tracking device. And if you have your location on, if you are in a specific area, like I'm in Venice Beach right now, it will, and I go to Instagram, if my geo tracking is gone, it's going to show me restaurants that are in my area. So, absolutely, social media is for every business. Not every platform is for every business, but social media is for every business. You
Walk
definitely
us through the
want to have a presence.
platforms then. Are there certain, tie this in with what you were saying about the target market. So pick any company that you want, but are there certain platforms that say, if your company is in this type of industry or offers this, I'm just putting some ideas into your mind of where to go with this, then I would suggest this platform? Or how does one choose that this platform, maybe this platform? Is there anything that I can say I target younger people or older people? And I'll just let you take it from there in a generic sense.
Yeah, when I teach with the SBDC, social media 101, the first slide that we go over is, all the different social media platforms. And I say, basically there are 6 major players. And it's not even 6 because Facebook owns Instagram and Google owns YouTube, right? So there's like 3 major players. So I get all of these social media platforms and I get to another slide that only has 6. And when you think about what you need to be on, every business should have a presence on Google, right? Because when people are thinking of a business, what are they going to do? Are they going to Instagram it? Are they going to tweet it? No, they're going to what, Lori? Google it.
Google.
Google it. And
Yep.
because Google owns YouTube, I always recommend having at least one video on YouTube because you can be found in search. And the key with social media is being discoverable, is being able to be found in search. Many of us in our personal life, we don't like social media. We don't want to be found. But for your business, it's different. We want to be found. So I say that every company needs to be on YouTube, and the presence that you can have for free on Google, which those of you that don't know me, I know Annie and Emma and Miriam, you know this, but for those of you that don't know me, one thing you could do as an action step right now is go to google.com/mybusiness and get a listing. They have free listings. Back in our day, Lori, we had the yellow pages, we had
Yeah.
the white pages, right? And you need to get a listing in there if you want to be found ABC Plumber, ABC Marketing, right? ABC Finance. Now it's Google listing. And the more reviews you get, the more visibility you get. When you talk about age range, like if you want me to give a simplistic answer
Mhm.
for the platforms, for people under 40, there is Instagram, but Instagram, I'm going to clarify that in a moment. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, right? Like those, and by the way, all of those are vertical platforms. They're not you don't read left to right, they're vertical, up and down, because that's the way like gaming is. And the younger people are used to gaming. So that's the way they're designed. For people that are over 40, there is Facebook, of course. If you ask somebody, if you're going to market to somebody that's under 40 and you say something about Facebook, they're going to give you a dirty look. Not only do they not like Facebook, they hate it. I live in Silicon Beach and I have a lot of engineer tech neighbors. They're like tech guys. And if I say, oh, I found the news on Facebook, they're like, oh, how could you listen to Facebook? And they're like, we're on Instagram. But Zuckerberg owns Instagram too. But anyway, that's the whole metaverse. We'll talk about some other time. I'd love to talk about it some other time. It's fascinating. So Facebook over 40. So if you're doing a skincare product, and it's for women that are over 45, you want to definitely have a presence on Facebook. Okay.
Gotcha.
If you are going so if you're a business, say you're an accountant and you're really wanting to work with organizations to do their bookkeeping, not small organizations, you want to work with Fortune 500 companies. You want to be on LinkedIn. And by the way, through the SBDC, I have over 30 webinars. I have a 3-part series on YouTube. I have a 2-part series on LinkedIn. I have a 6-part series that Annie and I just did with Pastina on Instagram. So there's a lot to go into with each one of these platforms. And by the way, I said that Instagram was for under 40. Instagram is also for any small business that has a visual platform, like real estate, like restaurants, like photography. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So basically, there's no like really quick, easy answer, Lori. When I meet with people one-on-one, I help them with strategy. I help them pick their platforms. Then I help them create the content, have a content strategy so that it converts to sales, because
So what we're
everything.
going to do is we're going to get Lauren involved because you listed some things and spoke some things, and I like to get them in the chat for everybody
Okay.
in the audience. So the first thing you said is what on Google, they go to Google listings. So Lauren, can you get that from Deborah and throw that in
Google,
the chat?
it's google.com/mybusiness.
There you go. And then you are giving some awesome
Let me give it to
webinars and information through the SBDC. Lauren, can you throw in there too for anybody who is not a client of the SBDC, how to get signed up? Let's get those in the chat as well.
Yes.
Yes, of
I
course.
just like to make sure that I get everything in the chat that's mentioned so nobody is listening and then hears something and can't jump on it right away. So I just wanted to do some homework there and catch up. So with that, that's awesome that we've got the target market and you were starting to talk about content and everything. So that brings us to another question. Before we start unpacking all that, do a lot of people do their own social media? Do they hire someone? Say I'm just starting out and I know nothing about social media. Can I do it on my own, or am I going to have one of those ugly websites that you had years ago when you tried to do your own coding versus today's format? So let's go into, if I can do it on my own, what is the easiest that I could get involved in? And Deborah, I run into conversations with clients. So I'm going to ask you to comment on this. They hire someone and they spend a lot of money and they're not real happy. They didn't do proper check-ins. They maybe didn't interview the person they hired. They didn't have good expectations. I don't know. So let's say, what can I do by myself? And if I choose to hire somebody, what should I do to make sure I hire the right person?
Yeah. So it really depends on the individual's level of technological skill. So that's left brain, but also creativity, which is right brain. And I'm fairly tech myself, but when it comes to creativity, like the graphic design and all of that, I don't have it. So, I outsource my social media. It took me a long time to get there. But what I find is most small business owners do not have the time, energy, or awareness to do it themselves. So that, you can definitely try to do it yourself. And that's part of what I do is I help with the strategy and the content. So if you want to DIY when you first start, that's fine. And then you could delegate it later. However, the reason that and it hurts my heart, Lori, when I get with clients and they're like, we're paying $1,000 a month, and I look to see what they're getting for $1,000 a month, and it's like, oh my God, you could get this for $150 a month.
A lot of that too, Deborah. That's why
Yeah.
I'm really wanting to focus on what and where I see it, and this is why it's an important topic to my heart. I see companies that I look at their financials. they're not making enough money to buy a quart of milk, and they're spending 1,000, sometimes
Oh,
5,000 on social media. And I just do the numbers. I'm just the finance person, right? And I look at the return on their investment, and it's just, they would have been better off keeping the money in the bank. And so
yeah.
that's why I thought there's got to be a better process that when people interview or hire someone so they have an idea what they're doing. I find too often, Deborah, they hire out of desperation. Sales are down, somebody gives them an option to do their social media, and they just are desperate. So let's walk back that desperate person and give them a good strategy on knowing what they should hire, how they should interview the person, etc.
Yeah. And yeah, that hurts my heart too. And there's two different types of hiring, right? So there's hiring someone to do social media marketing management, where they're creating the content and they're interacting with your people, customer service. And then the second type of hiring is you're hiring someone to run ads. And they're two very different things, and they're two different skill sets. It's like, Lori, there's someone that can do your bookkeeping and someone that can do your taxes. And that's very different. Your bookkeeper doesn't do your taxes. Your tax person might be able to do your bookkeeping, but it doesn't work the other way, right? So what I recommend people start with is like a virtual assistant that you could get from Upwork.com. You could get from onlinejobs.ph, a virtual assistant that will manage your social media, rather than hiring an advertising agency, because advertising agencies, they call themselves digital marketing, but they're really advertising agencies. They're used to companies that have big budgets, thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And when you're doing ads, which I don't teach advertisement for social media, I teach organic. So how to create content that converts through brand awareness, through engagement, right? So when you hire somebody to do ads, there's a testing period. I was talking about this with all the SBDC marketers. We all get together. And I think what a lot of clients don't realize is, in the beginning, when you're doing especially something like Facebook ads, you are burning because you're testing to see what is going to work. And then what happens with social media, Facebook, this happened, is they change the algorithm. So Apple changed a rule about pixels and cookies, then all of a sudden the ads that were working stop working. So what I suggest people do, and I suggest this to myself, start small. So my small is I pay $300 a month for my, and I have two people working for me. One's very part-time and just doing reels, and one's outsourced in Argentina, and she's just doing my social media for my podcast, right? So they're two separate people, but that's my budget, right? And it there is a return on investment on that. But one of the things that I do that puts the small business owner in the driver's seat to get the return is I educate you through the webinars, through the one-on-ones, on strategy. So when they say to you, oh, I'm just going to share a post from Instagram to Facebook, and they're charging you $1,000 for that, what they don't realize, or what they're uneducated about, is Facebook is pay to play. If you post your Instagram post on your Facebook business page, you're not going to get seen because you have to run ads on Facebook to be visible. So that strategy already tells me that they're swindling you, that they're bamboozling you, because that strategy does not work. It may work for people that are on your page, they could see that content, but that doesn't work. So what I suggest to small businesses is that they start with a virtual assistant. And I, even during an SBD session, will train the virtual assistant. They'll bring their virtual assistant on the Zoom and we'll record it. And I'll say, this is what you do with Facebook. This is what you do with the newsletter. This is what you do with Instagram. And then they know what they're doing. And then, if they don't work out, you have all these recordings of what needs to be done and you can hire somebody else. But you've spent a small investment of hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars, that isn't getting a return.
I think it's just like I always tell people in finance, you may hire somebody to do your bookkeeping, you may hire a CPA. That does not mean that you just throw it at them with no knowledge of what's going on whatsoever. You still have to have some kind of an understanding to know that you're getting the right results. Now, Deborah, some time ago, and it's been, at least 5-6 years ago, I read this research and it was about social media. It's a little bit past, but it's an interesting question today. And when social media first came out, a lot of money, especially with the bigger companies, just got poured into social media, that was going to be the end all answer. And then it kind of came back and went, just like you were saying, social media is brand awareness. Social media is doing certain things. And they realized that a lot of the sales came from the traditional methods, whether it's networking or flyers or ads. And the conclusion was social media should not be your only sales strategy, your only advertising strategy. That
Right.
it's an add-on and not. And on another note, is I had a client one time that was impacted by an algorithm change on Google, and suddenly sales went out overnight. So tell me a little bit of how you communicate with people on what part of a strategy is social media in relationship to other strategies they have for growing their company through sales.
Yeah, and this is why actually today with Long Beach SBDC, I'm doing a Q&A. This is why I have to constantly be taking classes, because the algorithms are changing on a monthly basis. And every platform, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, has a different algorithm, right? So small businesses can't keep up with this. That's why they need to have a reliable social SMG that they trust. If it's not me, somebody within their system that's going to let them know, hey, listen, for example, Instagram posts stopped working. People were posting and getting people and getting business and getting sales. Then all of a sudden it stopped because Instagram decided they wanted to overthrow TikTok. And the only way to overthrow TikTok is to make reels predominant. So now I got off the phone with coaching someone today. They're like, Deborah, I've been doing posts and nothing's happening on Instagram. And it's because, and I said this in the 6-week series, reels is the only thing that the algorithm is picking up. And it's literally, if you're doing an Instagram reel, you get visibility in 6 different places on Instagram and now Facebook, because Instagram and Facebook is getting more and more integrated. So when you post an Instagram reel, they put it in the feed on Facebook. Facebook now has reels. Did you know that? Yeah.
So this, I'm sure people are sitting there thinking about these algorithms are changing and something may not work tomorrow. How does a novice even know any of this? Do you have to be within the know? Is there anything posted, or is it a surprise, or you just wake up one day and it's like you turn on the car and it doesn't start, so you know your battery's dead when it's dead? Let's delve in a little bit more on this algorithm changing, because to me, that's scary. Something may work today and not tomorrow. So tell us a little more about.
Just to bring it in your world, Lori,
Mhm.
when you think about the stock market, right, or finances, right, you have to pay attention. People that are invested in the stock market, I mean, they're not glued to the TV every minute, but they check it and they see where the market is. Or if you're in real estate, you check to see where interest rates are. One of the things that I emphasize is social media is an art and a science. The art is all the creativity and the content creation, all the graphics and everything. But the science is the measurement. People will not be worried or thrown off if, and this is something I made the biggest mistake in myself, Lori. So I learned from coaching myself, is I wasn't checking the analytics. Even with my podcast, I have a wonderful podcast that I do on StreamYard. And I was realizing, why isn't it growing faster? It's like you have to look at the analytics of your social media and determine what content are people interested in and give them more of that. Like I have a client that has a jewelry company, right? And so people love it when she has these young kind of pinup girls show themselves putting on makeup and getting dressed and putting on their jewelry. Like people love that because it's like, wow, that's so beautiful and so inspiring, right? They don't love it when she takes a flyer that she was going to print out and pass out and throws that on Instagram. That is not engaging. That is flat. Social media
Right,
is
for analytics.
social media is 3-dimensional. And the 3 dimensions are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And this is, people want to see it, they want to hear it, and they want to feel it. And this is why Social Media Examiner and all of the social media gurus at the beginning of 2018 were saying the future of all social is video. And they were right. Everything went video. But here's the good news for busy small business owners is people's attention spans have diminished. So video has increased, but attention spans are diminished. So what does that mean is the leader? Short form video, TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. Now YouTube has shorts. So what are those? 15-second, 45-second clips. They're not even videos. They're clips that get your ideal target market to understand how your product or service solves their pain and problem.
Let's talk about the video, Deborah, and the quality. When social media first came out, people were hiring professional videos and they were looking at it having to be professional. Now we got an iPhone, and it does not seem that, and this is my thing, Deborah, so you correct me, but it doesn't seem in a lot of cases that the quality of the video plays into the response. That's not the underlining substantial aspect of determining. So can somebody just use their iPhone? Do they have to have more creative equipment? How does quality play into results?
Yeah, no, I mean, iPhones are super high quality nowadays. And actually, when social media first started, they wanted everything to be perfect. Like
Right.
it was like that Instagram looked like a magazine. And then what they found was in consumer buying behavior that perfect was not relatable because no human is perfect, right? Nobody looks like
Yeah.
that. So people were saying, oh, we like stories because stories are the real deal because they were unfiltered, but then they put a filter on stories. And then they're like, well, we like live because that's the real deal. Then they put a filter on live, right? But the bottom line to answer your question is you do not need professional equipment. You just need a phone and an understanding. This is the key, everyone, to understand the mindset, because that's going to be the buying decision-making process of your target market. So where I would make my mistake and I would see other people is I would think like me. I'm like, well, everybody knows because I teach mindset. Everybody knows about the subconscious mind or everybody knows about this or that. They don't. You want to think like your target market. They are not as close to your business, your service, your product, your brand as you are. So you want to think, what are their questions? What are their pains? What are their problems? And you deliver it on your iPhone, on your Android. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can edit. There's a wonderful app for editing. You don't need to hire an editor or a camera person. It's called InShot, InShot. It's like it's like editing for, I don't want to say for dummies, but editing for novices. It's a wonderful app. I think it's like $4.99. It's what the influencers use. It's that orange one right there. InShot, excuse my nails. And let me tell you, the videos that get visibility and go viral aren't the ones that are best produced. You know what they are? The ones that are the most relatable. So the more you understand your target market and know what their pain points are, like let's just say it was a mother, and she was just like barely had time to even go to the bathroom, much less do her makeup. And you're like a makeup brand and you're doing like a little reel about a mother who can't even get her baby, off her arm. I was watching the Serena Williams story of her baby and trying to win Wimbledon with the baby breastfeeding and all that, much less put on makeup. And so you're talking about the issues that your real life customers have. That's what gets sales. They're like, oh, this brand understands me. They get me. I like them. I trust them. I'm going to buy from them. Right. So relatability, but also what gets people to buy is, I hate to say it, but it's entertainment. When we watch Super Bowl commercials, we don't watch it because we really want to know about life insurance. This is the time to know about cleaning our floors with Pine Sol. No, we want to be entertained. So a lot of social media is edutational. So you're educating them on your product and service and how it solves their pain and problem, but you're also delivering it in a fun and entertaining way. And trust me, I've had to get coaching from my young millennial that I hired, my whippersnapper, 31-year-old, because I just I'm not as creative as that. And she literally told me, Deborah, you don't need to talk to do an Instagram reel. The reels that are getting the most visibility, thousands and thousands of views, are with songs over it. So you don't need to talk, you just need to point. I bought something for Black Friday. It was like a weight loss thing for women over 40. And it was like a weight loss thing, or over 50. I don't know. It was like, can you lose weight when you're over 40? And this woman on Instagram was talking about all the issues that women over 40 have. Belly fat, brain fog, all this stuff. Too much cortisol, you can't sleep at night, hot sweats. She was talking to me like all the pains and problems that I was having. And she's like, but here's the solution. And every one of her reels mentioned that. It was just awesome. And I bought it. I bought her product.
Speaking of audit, so let's talk a little bit. So when people have a social media, how can they then have it transform into a payment, a credit card? I know that over the years, social media now allows you to buy on this and buy on that, and you can tie up your credit card with this, or you can have a Shopify type thing. Tell us a little bit about how someone then actually goes from you're watching the cool little Instagram, they're pointing, and they actually go to purchasing and money gets in your bank account. What systems do you have in place to make that happen?
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you asked this, Lori, because this is a really important point that I always emphasize. So social media is to make people aware of your product or service, but then what your invitation to them is always to go to your website to get the next level of what we call in marketing of your funnel, right? So some people, your product is a low cost product and people will buy right there. Like, I was having difficulty sleeping. This influencer was talking about this gummy that has CBD and melatonin or something. It was the miracle thing, and you take it and you're sleeping. Great. Link in bio, click, purchase. But usually, especially with like Instagram sales, and I talk about this, I'm going to talk about this with Annie in Pasadena. We're doing social media for holiday sales this Thursday. Little plug at 1:00, right, Annie? Let's do a commercial for a webinar, right? So we're doing a webinar. I just been working on it on holiday sales. So one of the things.
Got to get that from Annie. Okay, now that you've
PCCSBDC.org.
Get that in there, okay?
I know, I'm trying to type as fast as I can. Annie, shoot over that link to me so I can plug it in.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Like I said, I always make sure that everybody gets all the information. Keep going there, Deborah.
Never trust a marketer that doesn't market. I never trust a marketer. I'm always, see how I slipped that right in. Okay, so what you're doing on your social media is you're not blatantly selling, is you're inviting people to want more. We use an acronym in marketing. We marketers, I love acronyms. Do you love acronyms, Lori?
Yep,
It's
totally.
AIDA, AIDA, right? So A is for awareness, right? Social media, they're like, oh, I didn't know there was a CBD, CBN, melatonin gummy. Okay, that's interesting. I'm aware of that. Then the next thing they say, if you're interested, so that the I is for interested, like on the social media post, it will say, go to the website to get a discount code. Who doesn't want a discount code, right? So you give people on your social media a reason to go to your website, right? And some of you, I know some of you businesses are like, I don't discount. I'm a luxury brand. And that's okay. You do not need to discount. You could just say, go to my website to get on our VIP list, right? But what you want to do, and this is where digital marketing comes in. Social media, you're aware, then they go to your website because they're interested in learning more. You have to realize in sales, it usually takes 7 to 10 touches to make a sale. When I say touches, I don't mean touches because we're social distancing, but what I mean is impressions, right? So they see your social media post, maybe they see a reel, then they go to your website, then they get an email. And then really smart marketers will text me. They'll be like, oh, I saw that you were interested. Like they're having a 5 days of holiday sale. So every day there's a different deal with, oh, today you're getting free shipping. Today you get 15% off. Today you get 2 for 1, right? So awareness is A, interest, go to the website, get the email, then you've captured them. Listen, Lori, you can't go to CVS, Target, any store without them asking you, oh, do you have a rewards card? Put in your phone number. Why? Because if we don't if we as small business owners don't capture a phone number or an email, we're letting a prospect walk
Yeah.
around and they're gone. We have no way of doing the 10 touches to retarget them. They're out of our life,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
It's like
You
if
can
you're
have
like if
secret
you're
emails. Yep.
dating, if you don't get somebody's phone number, they're
Mhm.
gone. You may never see them again. Young people like to get the Instagram. I know you young people. You young people. Young people sometimes try to talk to me and they're like, "Oh, can I get your Instagram?" I'm like, "Oh, you are getting my number. Sneaky." Okay. A, awareness. I, interest. Then D. Okay, so then now I'm getting these emails about the CBD gummy and they're like, "Now I have to make a decision." But guess what? They're giving me an irresistible offer. They're telling me only for these 5 days, and I teach this in the sales class, only for these 5 days, I'll get 15% off plus Lori, free shipping. Oh,
Oh,
so what
free
we
shipping. Yeah.
do as small business owners is we make a want a need. Like, oh my God, I need that because if I don't get it now, I'm going to pay retail and I can't pay, I'm going to pay regular price. I don't want to pay regular
No.
price. I need to make a decision. And then the next one, AIDA, is action. You know what? I'm going to set a reminder in my calendar to buy that because I don't want to have wait till the price goes back up. And so that's part of what I teach you when we're doing your social media marketing content calendar, because the rule of thumb is give, 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 ask. It's like a dance. Cha, 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 boom. Give. I'm a dancer. Give,
I
give,
know.
give. Give, ask. So you're giving them information, you're educating so they're aware about it, you're getting them interested, you're tantalizing them to make a decision, and then you ask. But when you're asking, it's not like you're asking someone to buy a Girl Scout cookie or to buy something they don't want. By that time, they don't just want it, they feel like they need it because you did such a good job of making them aware because you know them. And this is why I have to spend a lot of time, Lori, with clients getting into their ideal target market. Because if somebody says they don't know who their ideal target market, we're going to have a lot of trouble selling because they're not going to know the pains and problems and their content isn't going to be relatable. What's relatable gets people to buy. So AIDA, but we want to capture people either in an email newsletter or in a text marketing campaign so we can retarget.
You know, it's interesting on the finance side, when I would go in and I would just kind of do an audit of companies when I was doing turnaround, I always had, it was a little bit touching on marketing just because obviously marketing equals sales, sales goes into finance, and that's what makes the pretty numbers on the financial statements, right? So every time I kind of came to this conclusion, I would notice when I went through the marketing and sales department looking for financial numbers, they either were not getting in front of the right people, or they were not getting in front of enough of the right people. Like maybe they were getting in front of the right people, but just not enough to make enough sales to cover the expenses, once again, on the finance. Or they were getting in front of the right people, they were getting in front of enough of the right people, but when they did, they weren't telling them the right message. And those are the three things that I always saw hit the financials across the board. Didn't matter what strategy they had. And really that's what you're talking about with this target market, and that's what you're talking about with understanding the pains and everything. So that is such a great point. I want to come back and ask you, Deborah, so many companies, you would think they would really understand what their target market wants, and they don't. What would you tell somebody to say if you just were blindly saying, hey, just do an audit to make sure you really know what the right message is, you really know what your target market wants, do at least these three things? What would they be?
Well, at least one thing is you probably, for a lot of new business owners, they are their target market,
Mhm.
right?
Right?
So usually people start out with focusing on people that are like them. Like when I first started my speaking business, it was to help professional Latinas in corporate America with mindset, right? I know what a professional Latinas issues are, right? So you can make a list. So the first thing we do, and usually people do this before they come to me because it's part of the business plan, is create your client avatar. And sometimes there's three different types of clients, right? So writing down, okay, they like golf, right? They have a master's degree. They have 2 kids and 1 small dog. They have an ex-husband that gets on their nerve. No, I'm just kidding. Whatever, like, and some of this sounds like, whoa, that's really specific, right? But the more you understand your target market, the better. Facebook, when they were doing the whole voting election thing, I don't want to get into it, but they literally were doing customer avatar profiles to understand if people like this, they don't like this. If they're undecided about this, they're going to like this. And they would literally make a profile. We can do the same, but we need to, number one, if we're our target market, understand what are our likes and dislikes, what are our behaviors, what are our needs. And the most important thing, and Gary Vee, marketing guru of the gurus, always talks about this, what keeps them up at night? What is
Yeah.
their pain and problem? Like literally my pain and problem with the getting the gummy is not sleeping. And I'm not sleeping. That's a problem because I need to have brain power to coach you, right? So another way of finding out your ideal target market is doing surveys of your current market. And a really simple way to do that, because people don't want to do focus groups or they don't want to bother, is in Instagram stories. Instagram stories has polls and you can ask, do you prefer this or do you like, I could ask people, do you prefer a webinar or do you prefer a podcast? Do you prefer a training with instruction or do you prefer Q&A? So like you can ask people questions to understand, or is your problem this with my product or is your problem that? Because the more you are clear about that, the easier it is to sell, because you're not even going to have to sell. You're just going to be educating them on how your product or service solves that.
I had firsthand several years ago, I was advertising my webinars, not at the time really webinars, they were on site, but they were all finance training for small businesses. So in my copy, what I did, and Deborah, you'll see this is so clear. I said, you need to know about gross profit. You need to know performance measurements. You need to know all this stuff, right? And it was working perfectly when I was working for the larger companies because you had CFOs that knew gross profit, they knew performance measurement, they knew the language. So I switched the classes to the very small businesses and I didn't get a response. And then it dawned on me that a small business owner is not necessarily going at bed at night going, I'm worried about my gross profit margin. I think everybody is, right? Because I think that
right,
way.
That's you, right.
And so it's so interesting because I changed the headline to one thing that I thought about it for days. I thought they're not thinking that. What are they thinking? And I changed it to this one sentence. Are you worried your company won't succeed?
Muy bien.
And so I just thought that was a perfect example, but it took me the longest time to figure it out because I realized I was so in my own world.
Right.
Translating it to their world. So there's just an example. So as we come to a close, is there any one great example you want to use where somebody wasn't using social media or was, and all of a sudden they did this and things changed for them? Those are always fun. Can you give us one story?
Yeah. So I have a client, he was out of Long Beach, and before the pandemic, he was only doing seminars to get people into his career prep program, right? He was preparing people to go to college, so he was selling coaching services to help your young person get into like an Ivy League college. And so once the pandemic hit, he came to me through the SBDC and was like, what do I do? And I'm like, how about webinars, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but how do I sell on webinars? How do I get people to my webinars? So I asked him, well, who's your target market? And remember, your target market may not be the person that benefits from your service, is the person that's buying the service, because his target market isn't the college student, it's their parents, right? If it was the college student, and this is really important, listen to this, it's not the college student, they're not paying the $3,000 for his services, it's their parents. So we did have some videos for the college student on YouTube just so they could be aware, Aida, of his service. But where we did our focus of the webinars is on Facebook, because the parents were over 40 and they were on Facebook. And what he did was a Facebook campaign. And what he did is he actually did ads with a lookalike audience. So lookalike audience is the best way. And trust me, I'm not an advertising expert, but I do know a lot about it just from, working with clients. So he took a lookalike audience of his current email list. He uploaded it to the Facebook ad campaign and he advertised his free webinar. And people, he had like 80 people come to his free webinar and
Wow.
yeah. And well, 80 people registered. 40 people showed up because it's always
Nope,
50,
30
it's
people
always
you have in
50%.
front. Yeah.
If you have 80 people register, there'll be 40 people, right? So out of the 40 people, like he was getting like 12 people because what he was doing with his funnel is getting them to have like a bonus with the webinar is you could have a 30-minute coaching session with him. And so those are people that were interested. Awareness of the webinar, interested. So then he would give them a 30-minute coaching session where he would give them the solution to their problem, which was his services, right? We
Yep.
solve problems. We don't sell on social media. We solve problems. And then he was able to convert, and he was getting from every webinar, his conversion rate was so high. It was like 25% of the people he was getting to be customers, and each customer was $3,000. And guess what? He never had to leave his couch because he was doing all the webinars, all the coaching from his couch. So his wife was kind of happy because she got to see his husband. She got to see her husband, and he was able to make sales, and just his business actually expanded during the pandemic because they were able to, because I coached him on how to automate the webinars. There's programs like Webinar Jam and Webinar Ninja where he didn't have to sit and do webinars all day. He did one. I love automation for your business.
Yeah.
And he put it out with the Facebook ads. People were watching them, and Facebook was selling the webinar. He was getting the coaching clients, and boom, and he could delegate that eventually, the closing, the coaching sessions, and boom, his business exploded. I'm really proud
What
of
a
him.
wonderful story. So we have a question from the audience. We have a woman that wants to know, she's Latina and she has a general contractor who sells solar installation in Southern California. So she's just curious for her business, their target market, what platform is best?
So, and that depends, is your target market over 40 for these solar, or these homeowners over 40 or under 40?
I don't know. So we'll have to just go on
Yeah.
what we have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really,
So if they were over,
here.
I thought so, Julia.
Yep.
I could read your mind. Yeah. So definitely what I would do, Julia, if I were you, is I would actually do Facebook. And you could do, the best way to use Facebook would be to do like a show like Lori's doing. You could use Zoom and broadcast it to Facebook, or you like to do a show about all the benefits of solar and educating people of how they're losing money by not having solar, by all the money that's wasted and spent in electric bill. You know what I mean? So you could also do ads on Facebook, but definitely doing Facebook Live and also Facebook Little Shorts, giving people tips. But you also want to consider laser targeting people. I would also consider LinkedIn, because if your target market's over 40, professionals, corporate people that have budgets for solar, six-figure incomes, they're in corporate America, they're on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has something called Sales Navigator. So if you were laser targeting people, homeowners that were in a specific profession, like professors, you could get a list from Sales Navigator to be able to target, and you could do email marketing campaigns to those people. But sign up with SBDC, have a session, and I'll help you.
Perfect. And we have all that information in the chat. So before we conclude this, I'm going to answer one of the non-social media questions. I'm going to answer a question about an idol. And I am getting a lot of information about people who are applying for the last EIDL. So the question had to do with how to get in touch with the SBA because they had not heard back from their idol. And so what I just did is I put in the chat some information of an email and a phone number on how you would communicate with the SBA. But this is the part that I want to speak about. When you communicate, and this was actually one of the lessons learned I wanted to tell people, if you're communicating with the SBA about the EIDL, which I'm getting a lot of these right now with the program being ending at the end of the year, every time you send a communication, you want to fill out a 4506T form. Lauren put 4506T in the chat. You can get that online. And the reason why you need to do that every time is I want you to think about, like, if you call the bank and they say, do I have permission to look at your account? You call your insurance, do I have permission to look at your account? Every time you call, they ask that question, right? So the 4506T gives them permission to look into the IRS and get your tax returns to review for either the idle loan or for an increase. So you want to send a 4506T. Also, very, very important, guys, listen to me if you're doing this. The 4506T is a legal document. Fill it out exactly like it appears on your tax return. Pay attention to caps, to spaces, to everything. You've got to have it spelled out exactly. Now, if you have not heard back from the SBA, send them an email or give them a call on the customer service. I put both in the chat. And if you send an email, make sure it's very simple. Don't tell a life story. In the subject line, put your application number, and then in the body copy, repeat the application number, say, I want to check status on my loan application, and once again, have a 4506T. And you can always call them. They got more people answering the customer service line now, and the customer service first level are able to tell you status. And that phone number is answered on Saturdays also, so it's not a bad idea to get a call on Saturday. So that's the answer to the idle question. And I also want to, before we conclude, to say next week we're going to go through some lessons learned where I'm going to talk about taxes at the end of the year, what you need to consider on whether you need to pay in estimated taxes if you're an S Corp, a sole prop LLC. Seeing a lot of confusion on that. And so the last next week is the very last show we're going to have till next year, till tax time. So I want to cover that basis so everybody has that information. Okay, Deborah, I want to come back to you and say thank you so very much for being on the show this week. We've learned a lot. I know that people have a better understanding of what social media is, what's involved, what it is not. Sometimes knowing what it is not also helps. And Lauren, thank you so much for putting all this information in the chat. I know you've been typing away on this. And so everybody has information to get more information from Deborah. Sign up for one of her classes. If you're not involved with the SBDC, please sign up. And once again, use that link to have any questions asked either during or before the webinar. And with that, Lauren, I'm going to send it back to you for closing out the show. And Deborah, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing this great information with everybody. Lauren?
Thank you, ladies, so much. Deborah, that was amazing. So much incredible information. Thank you, thank you. And Lori, as always, thank you to you. For those who have attended, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We will have a follow-up email to go out by the end of this week, where you can receive a link to the recording of this session so that you can, replay it over and over and over again and get to marketing that business of yours. Any questions, I will insert the link one last time. I'll hang on the Zoom for just a couple of more minutes so that everyone can retrieve those links. One link will be to our question form. So if you all want to be a guest or have a show topic suggestion, or if you have additional questions, go ahead and fill out that form. And then I'll, of course, include a link to our next session so that you all can join us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Again, next Wednesday at 10 a.m., we'll have more information. We'll have a follow-up email go out later on this week. And ladies, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Deborah, and thank you to all of the people who attended the show today. Thank you for being here every single week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Dan, I see your question. Hello to you as well. Yes, please email me. Send me an email and I'll connect the two of you. That email is lsimpson@lbcc.edu. Again, lsimpson@lbcc.edu. And I'll be sure you all are connected. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. That's again, Wednesday at 10 a.m. And Lori will be joined by another special guest. Thank you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.